I had a conversation this week with someone not in the parish who had suffered a personal and deep disappointment, and in the aftermath declared themselves agnostic, not a believer. They're thinking, I have been good, I've done everything right. If there was a God who was as faithful and powerful and loving as he's made out to be, this wouldn't be happening to me. And on the outside looking in, it is so easy to call this person naive in the ways of God. If you haven't walked very far on the path with God, you might think that the big things in your life, your children's health and well-being, your spouse's health and well-being, your own health and well-being, will go your way, will turn out okay if you're a believer. So it's easy to think, those of us who have walked a bit farther, it's easy to think, well, that wouldn't be me. I wouldn't lose my faith over that. But when you are on the inside of grief and lament and fear, that's another matter. Your own response to deep and profound disappointment is unknown until it is happening. When I walked through the valley of the shadow of death, I feared that God was in league with the dark forces. I couldn't bring myself to pray to a personal God, to a God who knew every hair on my head, who knew when the sparrow falls. That God was too fearsome in their seeming lack of care for the hairs on my head and the hairs on the head of the people I loved. I found what rest I could find in a more impersonal God, one who simply was, who is, and who is to come. The I am who I am. And since then, the little overlooked phrase in the Lord's Prayer has drawn my attention. As it is. Thy will be done as it is. In other words, as things actually are. As the world presents itself. There are times to cease striving and to simply accept that in some way God is as it is. That's the psalm today. It begins with such great trust, such hope, and such certainty. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I be afraid of? Of whom shall I be afraid? There is no one to be afraid of. It's the January New Year's resolution of faith. It's a song in our hearts when things are bright and we wake up and we walk into the day in confidence and hope and we get A+ and gold stars and our kids greet us with gratitude and cheerfulness. The Lord is my light, my salvation. Though an army encamp against me, though war rise up against me, yet I will be confident. But this psalm doesn't end there. It journeys onward, like the calendar does, like life does. January resolutions turn into February weight gain and March madness. The psalm journeys onward, and we hear about hardships and the absence of God's consoling presence. Hear me, Lord, the psalmist says. Hear me, answer me. Don't hide your face from me. Don't cast me off. Don't forsake me. Don't give me up to my adversaries. You know that kind of prayer, that kind of plea, that kind of heart-wrenching plea. Answer me. Don't hide your face from me. So our psalm this morning is not really about how God answers our prayers. It is a plea for patience and for trust in the face of what is clearly not going so well. The poet pleads for the ability and the wherewithal to endure and to wait for the Lord, even when there's no sign that his urgent prayers are being answered, even when the timing of the Lord's arrival and help is a long and undetermined way off. The truth is, radical trust, that radical, deep down trust, it's difficult, in the best of times. Superficial surface trust is just not so hard, especially when the sun's shining, there's been plenty of rain, and the hills are green. You know I'm talking about life circumstances, right? Not just about the actual sun, rain, and green hills, although those are no small matters. But radical, deep down, rooted trust, that's a whole other matter. Trust that however things are, whatever the circumstances are, God's eternal care will hold and will prevail. That kind of trust in the face of true difficulty does not come so easily. It's hard to generate and it's hard to sustain in truly difficult times, and we are in truly difficult times. You know, bunkers designed to withstand nuclear bombs, iodine tablets that are supposed to help with poisoning. All of these are making a comeback throughout Europe. Well over 2 million Ukrainians are now refugees. After the service today, Michelle Chisholm is going to speak to us about Haiti, which has become overshadowed in the news, but in which there's still great suffering from earthquakes, floods, poverty, gang violence, you know. We are so fortunate to live here. I mean, let's just raise a prayer of absolute gratitude. You know, and not carry, I mean, we carry the weight, but let's also carry the joy of the beauty and the safety. Because if we look at these same circumstances, these same world circumstances I'm talking about, with the eyes of enduring faith, there is also hope. Good Shepherd helps to support Father Jean Vantenal, probably not saying his name right, it's French, but Vantenal, Father Jean, his work at St. Paul's Parish in Montois, Haiti, where the parish school educates and feeds 145 students. Father Jean's home was taken over by gangs, but he has continued working in the parish and in the school. And the children continue to come to school. And if you didn't see the e-news that came out this last Tuesday, find it in your email folder, or your spam, or wherever it might have gone to. Or you can find it on our website. There's a lovely photo of the children celebrating Carnival before Lent begins. They are one. Michelle Chisholm's organization, who's going to speak to us after the service today, they support Life Song, which is a residential school not far from St. Paul's. And we will hear more about the wonderful work that is proceeding there in spite of the difficulties. You all have contributed enough for at least 8 fruit trees to be planted in needy communities to provide food, seed for more fruit trees, and stability for erosion control. This is an ongoing project of our youth. And one of our parishioners, who is back just this morning, has been in Romania helping a Ukrainian refugee family. And I'm going to print her entire update along with photos in this coming week's e-news. But here's just a portion of it. So many kind people, both in the US and here in Romania, have been helpful. The photographer who took the photos for the visa application would not allow the family to pay him. He arranged a dental appointment for one of the children who had a toothache from a cavity. The dentist who saw her would not take payment. We've been moved around quite a bit, given the housing situation, but another friend of a friend's contact is allowing the family to stay in an apartment they have here in the city. She writes, since the short time I have been in Romania, I've seen the refugee numbers go from 500,000 to over 2 million. Yet the countries surrounding the Ukraine continue to be kind and welcoming. From an older gentleman handing out teddy bears to children outside the Ukrainian consulate, to people donating clothes. In such a horrible situation, we are seeing glimmers of light. Psalm 27 is beloved because it faces the realities of life squarely. We all know about the deep darkness that we heard about in our first reading, you know, the terrifying darkness that Abram falls into. And we know the covenant that God makes to keep faith with us. And when we lift up our hearts and we look around, we see that there is uplifting hope that comes to us from unexpected places, from an elderly man handing out teddy bears to people responding to email requests for contacts that can help, to the joyful faces of children in Haiti who dress up to have a party, to seeing beloved faces here and online, gathered once again to lift up our voices, to lift up our hearts in praise and thanksgiving. So whether you're standing in the high places of confident trust, or you're standing on the shakier ground of lament and darkness, may you plant yourself in the kind of faith that doesn't wither when things don't turn out well. May you surround yourself with companions to remember that your viewpoint is finite, is limited, and that there is an infinite goodness at work. May you stand firm in the Lord as Paul encourages the Philippians to do, whether you're singing about the Lord as your light and your salvation, or whether you're pleading for God to have mercy on you and answer you. Either way, may you stand firm in the Lord, and may you, in the company of the church, wait for the Lord, and take heart.